Hello fellow style explorers, we're returning to the world of illustration styles, this time for a fresh set of discoveries. If you've seen my earlier video on this topic, you'll know these are the styles that give images that handcrafted, storybook quality, blending charm and character with unique interpretations of color and line. In that first exploration, we saw how varied these styles could be. Some leaning toward digital painting, others toward traditional pen and ink or watercolor. But the new styles I've tested for this video bring an even wider range of personalities to the table. As with all my style deep dives, I began by creating 16:9 horizontal images, using only the period symbol as the prompt and the seed number, 777. This gives us a clean baseline to see what the style does without any subject matter influencing it. After that, I switched to vertical 9:16 images with 4 chosen prompts: boy, bunny, boat, and tavern. These give us a balance of character, animal, object and setting, so we can see how each style handles different creative challenges. If you want to try these styles for yourself, just add --SREF and the style number to your Midjourney prompt, and make sure personalization is off for consistency. I was genuinely surprised by the variety in this set, and I think you'll see some strong contenders for storytelling projects. Let's jump in and explore. Through the scene, where radiant oranges and golds meet deep blues in a harmonious, dreamlike flow. Painterly textures and ornate detailing give the imagery a rich, storybook fantasy atmosphere. The ornate movement and glowing palette carry effortlessly across all compositions, unifying characters, animals, architecture, and landscapes into a single enchanted world. Shapes feel naturally integrated into the swirling framework, and the visual cohesion remains strong without any element breaking the spell. 157. Luminous cinematic cartoon realism. Soft sunlight and gentle shadows shape expressive, wide-eyed characters and cozy domestic scenes, with colors leaning toward warm yellows, creams, and sky blues. The smooth, slightly stylized rendering gives the work a polished yet approachable feel, reminiscent of modern animated films. The warmth and clarity of the palette carry through every subject, creating a consistent, inviting tone. Clean backgrounds and careful attention to facial expressions make the imagery instantly relatable, while small textural touches, in clothing, fur, and wood add just enough realism to keep the style grounded. 183. High contrast crosshatch. Rendering. Rendered in rich black and white, the scenes combine meticulous detail with dramatic contrasts, producing an almost photographic clarity. Fine linework and tonal precision capture both texture and depth, giving the images a timeless, documentary-like presence. The style's realism remains unwavering across all compositions, with consistent lighting and shading unifying them. Textures, whether skin, fur, water, or stone, are handled with the same precision, ensuring nothing feels out of place. The result is strikingly cohesive, though the intensity of detail leaves little room for softer or more stylized interpretation. 188. Cel-shaded digital illustration. Bold, clean edges and vibrant blocks of color give the imagery a crisp, graphic quality, reminiscent of painted animation cells. Shadows are minimal but purposeful, allowing the saturated hues and sharp outlines to take center stage. The approach translates smoothly across all scenes, keeping subjects punchy and high impact without losing dimensionality. Color contrast remains a defining feature, and the simplified shading works equally well for characters, animals, and architecture. The uniformity is strong, though the flatness may feel slightly rigid compared to more painterly interpretations. 191. Sketchy orange ink illustration. Loose pencil lines meet bold blocks of orange and muted blue, creating a playful balance between sketch-like spontaneity and controlled color placement. Characters and environments have a slightly exaggerated, whimsical quality that feels both casual and deliberate. The strong orange accents serve as visual anchors, tying all compositions together with a clear thematic thread. Hand-drawn textures give the style personality, while the selective palette keeps it visually tidy. This mix of rough and refined makes for a charming, cohesive presentation without feeling overworked. 194. Limited palette, surreal linework. Flat color planes in muted yellows, greens, and reds define a bold, poster-like aesthetic, with clean outlines and minimal shading giving the work a graphic punch. The limited palette and precise shapes lend it a retro-modern sensibility, somewhere between vintage prints and indie comics. The restricted colors keep every composition tightly unified, even when subjects vary widely. Crisp linework and geometric simplification ensure nothing feels out of place, though the style's rigidity leaves little room for softer or more atmospheric interpretation. The result is striking and memorable, but intentionally restrained in emotional range. 210. Flat color vector. Bold, clean-edged shapes and smooth gradients define a polished vector-like look, yet the color choices and subtle texture keep it from feeling overly mechanical. Shadows and highlights are stylized into flat planes, lending the work a graphic clarity while preserving a sense of depth. The aesthetic holds together well across all scenes, balancing crisp edges with painterly nuance. Subjects feel equally well suited to this treatment, and the mix of realism with graphic simplification gives the set a versatile, contemporary appeal. 237. Layered digital pastel brushwork. Soft pastels and gentle gradients create a tender, almost storybook innocence, with simple shapes and minimal detailing enhancing the charm. The compositions feel airy and uncluttered, allowing each element to breathe against expanses of muted color. A calm, whimsical consistency ties everything together, from figures to animals to architecture. The restrained palette and clean forms give the scenes a cohesive, comforting warmth, though the minimalism means emotional depth comes more from mood than from detail. 247. Hand-inked duotone illustration. Delicate linework and muted, earthy tones give the imagery a vintage, hand-inked feel, enriched with subtle cross-hatching and fine texture. The compositions balance decorative detail with a grounded, folk-inspired warmth. The illustrative precision and natural palette unify all subjects seamlessly. Every element feels intentionally placed, with intricate botanical motifs and architectural flourishes adding depth. It's richly cohesive, though its measured traditional approach leaves little space for bold or experimental departures. 257. Celestial filigree, digital illustration. Rich golds swirl through deep blues in intricate, ornate patterns, creating a sense of movement like celestial currents. The compositions shimmer with decorative flourishes and glowing highlights, blending fantasy elegance with cosmic grandeur. The elaborate detailing and radiant palette remain consistent throughout, uniting every subject in a shared, almost mythic visual language. Flowing forms and luminous accents ensure a seamless integration, while the opulence leaves little visual rest, perfect for grandeur, but less suited to subtle moments. 259. Soft pastel gouache. Delicate pastels and airy compositions evoke a sense of refined elegance, with soft pinks, lavenders, and creams flowing through every scene. Figures and objects are rendered with gentle precision, blending fashion, illustration sensibilities with a dreamlike calm. The muted palette and graceful linework tie the imagery together effortlessly. Even with varied subjects, the style maintains a poised, almost ethereal sophistication, though its subtlety may sacrifice some visual punch in favor of atmosphere. 276. Vintage fashion illustration. Flat planes of muted oranges, teals and lavenders combine with precise outlines to evoke a retro fashion magazine aesthetic. Figures and objects are rendered with crisp geometry and minimal shading, lending the scenes a clean, graphic sophistication. The color blocking and streamlined forms provide strong cohesion, making every composition feel part of the same stylized world. Its controlled palette ensures harmony, though the restrained expressiveness can make it feel more like editorial art rather than narrative illustration. 290. Monumental gold deco. Strong geometric framing, deep blacks, and restrained gold accents create a formal, almost heraldic presence. The compositions feel deliberate and architectural, with symmetrical layouts and crisp textures reinforcing a sense of grandeur. The high-contrast palette and ornamental framing hold all pieces together with a commanding visual unity. Subjects feel elevated into emblematic forms, though the rigid structure leaves little room for spontaneity or softer, narrative moments. 3.02. Cozy Chibi Cottagecore. Warm reds, oranges, and soft browns fill every frame with a cheerful autumn glow, paired with charming, rounded forms and playful detailing. The scenes brim with cozy clutter, plants, books, and whimsical decor, creating a homely, welcoming energy. This warmth translates seamlessly across all compositions, keeping characters, animals, and settings equally inviting. The dense decorative approach adds richness, though its busyness leaves little negative space for visual rest. 307. Blush-toned sketch scenes. Soft blush tones wash over every scene, paired with fine line work and delicate shading to create a gentle, cozy atmosphere. The aesthetic blends hand-drawn charm with a warm, pastel palette that feels light-hearted and approachable. Consistency is strong, with the pink base tying together characters, animals, and architecture alike into a unified, whimsical world. Small textural details and carefully chosen props enrich each composition, giving them a lived-in feel without breaking the airy mood. While the dominant hue creates harmony, it also narrows the tonal range, making contrast a rarer but more noticeable element when it appears. 3.17. Midnight Indigo. Gold line. Deep navy backgrounds frame intricate gold and ivory detailing, with accents of warm red bringing selective emphasis. The style blends decorative elegance with a calm, formal balance, echoing traditional Japanese screen painting. The limited palette creates a strong visual unity, making each subject feel part of a curated, ornamental set. Fine line work and precise placement of highlights lend sophistication, while the contrast between flat color planes and detailed textures keeps the imagery engaging. Its controlled, deliberate execution prioritizes harmony and refinement over spontaneity, resulting in a timeless and composed presentation. 341. Minimalist line silhouettes. Sparse black line work on stark white backgrounds gives the imagery a clean, unembellished clarity. The absence of shading or color shifts all focus onto composition and form, resulting in a strikingly direct, almost diagrammatic quality. This pared-down approach ensures perfect consistency between subjects, with every element reduced to its essential silhouette. The simplicity creates an appealing graphic punch, though it offers limited tonal depth or texture. Its strength lies in bold readability and conceptual sharpness rather than atmospheric nuance. 345. Whimsical storybook digital painting. Sunlit pastels and soft, painterly brushstrokes infuse the scenes with warmth and gentle charm. Light scatters in a way that feels magical yet grounded, giving both characters and settings a welcoming glow. The style's consistency shines in its seamless blending of whimsical detail and natural light, ensuring every element feels part of the same lively, heartwarming world. Textures in foliage, fabric, and fur are rich without overpowering the composition, while expressive faces and subtle gestures keep the mood playful and relatable. It's a balanced mix of narrative illustration and animated film appeal, with a strong emotional pull. 350. Mint Pink Chibi Sketch. Soft pinks and mint greens dominate this playful chibi style, with rounded shapes and oversized eyes adding an extra dose of cuteness. The minimal shading and clean outlines give the imagery a polished, candy-like finish. A consistent pastel palette ties every piece together, making characters, animals, and settings feel part of one cheerful, whimsical universe. The simplified forms keep the mood light and approachable, while small decorative details, like patterned clothing or tiny props, add personality without breaking the style's clarity. It's charming and cohesive, though the sweetness leaves little room for darker or more dramatic tones. 356. Vivid outlined storybook. Bright, saturated colors and lively brushwork give the imagery an energetic, comic book vibrancy. Outlined forms and textured strokes add dynamism, while light and shadow are handled with bold, confident contrasts. The vivid palette carries across all scenes, uniting characters, animals, and environments in a playful, high-energy world. Exaggerated expressions and slightly stylized proportions keep the tone lighthearted, while detailed backgrounds provide visual richness without overwhelming the subjects. It's consistently engaging, with a balance between narrative charm and action-ready impact. 370. Sunlit cel-shaded illustration. Vivid sunlight and warm saturated tones define the look, with crisp outlines and painterly shading giving scenes both clarity and depth. The style blends realism with a polished, editorial illustration finish, making each frame pop with color and energy. Across the set, the strong lighting and vibrant palette hold everything together, giving characters, animals, and architecture the same inviting warmth. Sharp edges and carefully layered shadows create a sense of dimension, while the brightness maintains a cheerful, approachable feel. It's cohesive and eye-catching, with just enough realism to ground its lively aesthetic. 375. Verdant ink wash. Expansive washes of green and warm ochre dominate, with soft gradients and painterly textures creating the impression of rolling landscapes seen from above. The muted yet varied tones give the scenes a calm, contemplative quality. The aerial perspective and broad color fields link all compositions into a cohesive visual journey. Figures, boats, and buildings appear as small, deliberate accents within the sweeping environments, enhancing the sense of scale. This restraint keeps the focus on mood and setting over fine detail, lending the work an elegant, almost meditative atmosphere. 380. Dusky lotus dreamscape. Muted purples, pinks, and warm oranges blend into soft gradients, casting each scene in a tranquil, late-afternoon glow. The smooth rendering and gentle transitions between light and shadow create a serene, almost cinematic atmosphere. This harmony in tone and texture ensures that every composition feels part of the same peaceful world. Figures, animals, and architecture are enveloped in the same hazy light, giving them a unified softness. While the palette's subtlety enhances mood, its limited contrast means that visual impact relies more on composition than on sharp color dynamics. 382. Crayon glow whimsy. Bright, playful colors and a textured, hand-drawn look give the scenes the charm of crayon or pastel illustrations. Soft outlines and visible strokes enhance the whimsical, storybook quality, making the imagery feel lively and approachable. The consistent color vibrancy ties all compositions together, from characters to architecture. Slightly exaggerated proportions and expressive faces keep the tone lighthearted, while the rougher textures add warmth and personality. It's a joyful, cohesive style that balances youthful energy with tactile, handmade appeal. 401. Golden hour linework. Warm golden yellows dominate the palette, contrasted with crisp blues and soft reds to create a sunny, storybook atmosphere. Clean linework and flat yet richly varied color fills give the imagery a classic European comic feel. The consistent color scheme keeps all compositions tied together, from cozy interiors to open landscapes. Characters and settings share the same precise outlines and warm tonal balance, making the style feel cohesive and approachable. The brightness adds cheer and clarity, though the controlled palette limits shifts in mood, keeping the tone consistently light and optimistic. All right, that wraps up the second part of my illustration style exploration. I think this batch brought an even wider range of personalities compared to the first. Some styles really excelled at soft, storybook charm, while others leaned toward bold, graphic energy. If you've watched the earlier video, I'm curious which set you prefer, or if you've discovered something new here that you're eager to try out. You can get all the images and prompts from this video in a handy PDF over on my Patreon or Ko-fi, where you'll also find resources from previous style explorations. Members also get early access to most of my videos, so if you'd like to support the channel and keep these explorations going, that's a great way to do it. And if not, subscribing, liking and commenting here on YouTube is always appreciated. Thanks for watching, and let's continue prompting.